All right, folks, this is our last speaker of the day. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully everyone's had the opportunity to visit the Expo room and see all our booths out there. Our last topic here is holistic funerals, natural, ecological, sustainable options, and our presenter is Karen Van Vuren of The Natural Funeral. She's a former journalist and co-founder of Colorado's award-winning holistic funeral home, The Natural Funeral, located in Lafayette. Karen.
Hi, thanks for being here for the last session of the day. I was just saying I thought I'd have 5 people, and I've got more than 5, so I'm really thrilled. I'm going to give you quite the overview of the services that the Natural Funeral provides and some of our philosophy. And I did have some videos in this presentation, but I'm going to skip those because I don't think we'll get through them. But on our website, thenaturalfuneral.com, we have some videos that I think you'll find quite illuminating about our holistic and green options. So the first image that you're seeing here is inside our funeral home, which looks very different to perhaps the inside of any other mortuary that you've ever walked into, because we have a high aesthetic bar, we support local artists, so we have art on the walls, it's bright, it's light, it's uplifting. People have a lot of anticipatory angst about walking through our doors, and we sit them down, and I'm from England, and we give them a cup of tea on bone china and cookies, and we really try to make it as easy and welcoming for those who I know are dealing with a lot of stress and grief. And so I just want to say I'm in this work really, I would say, due to my brother, who died when he was 9 years old and I was 11, and I grew up in England. My brother had hepatitis as a baby, and he died on his own in an ICU with no one there when they unplugged life support, and we received a phone call saying that he had died. And he was dying his entire life because he was very sick as a baby with hepatitis that he contracted from a hospital, and he lived for 9 years. And so I grew up with somebody dying in my house as an older sibling, and didn't really appreciate what my parents went through, how his dying and ultimately his death were or were not supported and held, until I became a hospice volunteer in my 30s and had my own children, and had this incredible curiosity about how are we doing death, or how are we making a rite of passage out of death that is ultimately potentially healing for those who are there for it. And I had curiosity about environmental aspects of death care. I worked in elder care, I was a caregiver, then I was in a hospice as a hospice volunteer coordinator, and ultimately started a nonprofit that for many years did education. So that was my thing, and actually it's still my thing. In 2019, I opened a funeral home with 2 friends. So I stepped out of being an educator and actually supporting families as well for many years to do home funerals where somebody died at home and there was a ritual around the body that is through the ages something that families have done. And then decided, okay, I've talked about the funeral industry and been kind of a little bit of a not necessarily an enemy, but having some very, I think, well-founded critiques about how the funeral industry operates and the choices that they bring to families, and then decided to enter the belly of the beast and become a change agent. So the Natural Funeral opened in 2019, and this is one of my partners, Seth, with the very iconic beard there. And as you can see, we've got our cups of tea, and it's a lovely space. I invite you to come and visit if you would like, right downtown Lafayette. So one of our signature services is called Reverend Body Care. And that's just a name we have given to it. It's a practice that I supported, as I said, for many years under my nonprofit, where families would have someone die at home and they wanted to have a plan around when this person dies, what are we going to do? Are we just going to get on the phone and have their body removed really quickly and not take any time? Or maybe we have a way of being with this momentous event that really marks it in a way that is beautiful and very conscious. And so this practice, which is in many cultures, including in the Jewish culture, where the Hevra Kadisha is involved in a ritual washing. In Buddhism, they also have the body staying after death because of a belief about supporting the spiritual process. In many, many traditions, there's, okay, death has happened, and now what? How are we with it? So in our funeral home, we have reverent body care, which it can still take place in somebody's home, or it can take place in our chapel. We have a beautiful little beetle kill pine chapel in Lafayette, and it is this ritual washing of the body as a cleansing, but actually more than that. This is your person who is lying there, and this is the vessel that carried them through life. How can we honor that and at the same time take a step towards letting go of the physical representation of our person? Where did the feet walk in life? Whom did these hands touch? Whom did this heart love? And this washing that can be, it can be very hands-on for families, or it can be that they're just wanting to wash the hands and feet and maybe the face, is really a washing with love, more than a cleansing, although of course that is also what it is, with all natural products. And then afterwards there can be this anointing, which is a ceremony of blessing the body with an essential oil, usually in a base oil like jojoba, and just gently putting that oil on the place of the body that you are drawn to. And we hold it as a ceremony without any necessary religious or spiritual connotation. But of course, families bring their own traditions, and we honor those and help them to weave something that is creative and healing and beautiful. So that's Reverent Body Care. And I'm sorry, I'm not showing you the video. And this is a whirlwind tour, right, through holistic and ecological approaches to end of life and death care. So I'm going to start off by talking about green burial, because that's something that has been around for a very long time. The Quakers have buried their people in a very simple way, with biodegradable caskets, with very unadorned cemeteries, natural vegetation. And the Jewish tradition is also about simple burial in a plain pine box. So this graphic that you're looking at on the screen, it shows a very clear difference between the depths of the graves. With conventional burial, the casket is typically buried 6 feet under. And it may be a casket that is not biodegradable. It could be rainforest woods, it could be metal. And the landscaping is potentially, in most cemeteries, it's pretty high resource usage. They're using a lot of water and pesticides and fertilizer. And there's just a lot that is happening with manicuring that space. And the markers may also not be particularly biodegradable. The body may have been embalmed. Embalming is not required by law in Colorado if you refrigerate, so cool the body down. Embalming is a very invasive practice that puts formaldehyde and other chemicals into the body for temporary preservation. And in a green burial, the body would not have been embalmed. And we don't practice embalming as a funeral home either. We only use natural products and advocate for biodegradable products. And on the, in the other photo, and the other graphic, there is a casket that looks to me like a paper one, which would be acceptable, but equally the body could be in a shroud. We do quite a few shroud burials. That's what our families apparently are now asking for, and we do burials. Currently, we have a green section in Lions Cemetery where you can have a shroud burial, and we do hand lowering with ropes into the grave in a very old-fashioned way, which invites family participation if families want to be involved, where you are holding the rope and lowering your loved one into the grave. So you have this connection to what has occurred, that the body is now really being returned to Mother Earth. And because this grave is more shallow, there's more microbial activity that can happen. The earth can reclaim your body more easily when it's a shallow grave. And in green burial, there's normally natural low resource usage landscaping that is happening as well. I wish we had a conservation burial ground in Colorado, because those are the ultimate for me anyway, as regards to conserving land, right? The name implies there's conservation burial, and returning the body to the earth in a very simple way, so your carbon footprint at the end is not just small, but you're offering a blessing to the earth. And the nearest conservation burial ground is in New Mexico. And it's not within reach, but I wish there was something more on our doorstep here. So this is a photograph of a burial that we were privileged to facilitate, that happened in Lions, and you can see that there are some boards that are going over the grave, and the person is actually shrouded in a very simple cotton shroud. And this is a willow carrier, which often is not put into the grave. It's just for the purposes of transporting the shrouded body. So the body was lifted then from the carrier onto the boards, and there are actually, you can't see it, but there are actually ropes attached to our shroud. It has a board underneath to keep the body so it doesn't sag. And then the pallbearers were holding onto the ropes, and the boards are removed. And ultimately, the body is placed into the grave. And this family member very much wanted to put the earth back onto his person. And again, it's that opportunity for participation. It's not that everyone has to be involved, but just to be invited to be part of something that for many years we've been removed from. Like, funeral homes take care of everything for you, and bless the people who work in funeral homes who do that, but there should be invitations for participation, I feel. Flame cremation, just going to mention that because it's the most popular form of what we call final disposition. Certainly in Boulder County, I believe it's 90+% right now. And I had both of my parents cremated, and now we have more choices that are less impactful for the earth, for the atmosphere. Flame cremation is usually done with a gas-powered flame retort using non-renewable resources, and consequently we're putting CO2 into the atmosphere. If you have amalgams in your teeth, you're of an age where you had those fillings with mercury in, then in flame cremation they are vaporized in the process and enter our atmosphere and enter us. So just something to mention. Our funeral home offers flame cremation. We couldn't actually exist without doing that when 90% of people are choosing that. and we have no judgment if you come and you say you want that. We're just about education. Actually, I'm here about education. This is a forum for education, so I'm being transparent. But, you know, ultimately, you choose what's right for you. Water cremation is something which you may or may not have heard of. It's actually been around since the late 19th century. It was invented by a British chemist who wanted to really help farmers find a way for their deceased livestock to be returned to the earth in the most beneficial way. So how do you break down the body so that it can really go far, so to speak? And so Amos Herbert Hobson invented alkaline hydrolysis, which was patented in the United States in, I think, 1898. And it's using mostly water and alkaline compounds like potash, potassium hydroxide, to reduce the body over really just a couple of hours. So there are only bones left, and actually more bones than with flame cremation, because with flame cremation, some of those bones are actually incinerated, and you have less bone matter left. So there's 20% more left with water cremation. And we are changing the pH throughout the process, ultimately, so we are left with a liquid that is pathogen-free, sterile, and actually a bionutrient. So you become a fertilizer for the earth, and for an average person, maybe 150 pounds, there are 25 to 30 gallons that are left, and these are offered to the family. Usually families want a token amount that then they can dilute and put on plants or a tree, and the rest we donate to a local farm. And the bones are left at the end of this process. Actually, anything that's inside you, any prosthetic, is totally intact. And those get recycled. But the bones we reduce in the same way you would if it were flame cremation, and people get back cremains that then they go and do their scattering. And the cremains are white in this instance, and with flame cremation they are gray because of again, the incineration process. And it takes about total of 3-4 hours. We have to dry the bones that are left and reduce those. So usually it's over the course of a day, and then the next day they're ready for families. And it was legalized in Colorado in 2011. We were the first funeral home to have a client choose this in the summer of 2019, and we've done, 150 plus water cremations at this point. And our facility is in Arvada. Our funeral home is in Lafayette, but it's right downtown, and we couldn't do it right downtown. And this is a video which you can see on our website if you go to the website, but I didn't include it here. And I know I'm getting close to my allotted time, but I have to tell you about body composting, because some of you may know it was legalized in Washington State a couple of years ago, and then this year it was made legal and became legal on September 7th of this year. And on September 22nd, we had the first family to choose body composting that we served. And in this photograph, you'll see the two designers of our Chrysalis Vessel, so body composting is really a temporary burial we're talking about. You are placed in a burial vessel for the composting duration, and then at the end, the soil is returned to the family. And this vessel we call the Chrysalis, and it's made of recycled materials. And Seth Vidal is one of the partners. He's the one with the iconic long beard there. And Chris is one of the designers of the Chrysalis. That's why we called it the Chrysalis. And they are putting a little bit of moisture onto the straw, you see, but the person is placed in the vessel, and they're usually they're lying on soil and a special mixture which is formulated for this process, which contains fungi and very active biological ingredients, enzymes, which is part of composting if you are a composter. And then there's straw that goes on top of that. And we offer an opportunity, if a family wants, to be present, to be there for a laying in. And our first family chose to be there to see their loved one go into the vessel in a sheet. The second family, we put the person in and they were covered, but they wanted to be present and again, participatory. So they took straw and they put it on top, and we had some words, some poetry, some blessings. And again, it's like creating an opportunity for something meaningful that's just going to stay with you in a positive way, especially when there's been traumatic death, and we, as a funeral home, deal with a lot of sudden death as well. And so this is showing the straw. Ultimately, this vessel is closed. They're putting a little bit of moisture on there because that's also necessary in order for composting to happen. And we check this vessel. It's a monitored and managed biological process. We have to check what's going on. We have to put oxygen. There are some little inlets for oxygen to go in at regular times. And this is a round vessel, so it can be turned just as you would turn a compost vessel. And at the end of, we're telling our families, because we're pioneers, like we're being transparent here, it's 6 months to a year at this point, but we're expecting that our composting process very soon will take as little as 4 months. And it's pretty incredible what Mother Earth can do, right? That if you've composted yourself, just to see, wow, there's soil at the end of this, and it really is amazing for the earth. So all of these choices are very individual. When I talk to families about this, they're either like, ugh, or they're like, oh yeah, that's absolutely what I want. And for years, people have been saying, I just want to be returned to the earth and simply, and I want to nourish the earth. So that's what body composting does. So I'm pretty close here with my time in. I know there's a Q&A session, and would love to have some questions from you. Yeah. Who gets our compost? We offer it to families, actually. And the first family that we served, as I said, in September, I believe are going to take all of it. And that's probably going to end up being a couple of wheelbarrows full. If a family did not want it, we would donate it to the farms that currently receive our water cremation liquid essence when families don't want that. So we're always returning to the earth, either the soil or the liquid essence from the water cremation. Over there.
My question has to do with cost.
Yes.
Is the cost of these different?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're a funeral home that believes in transparency. And I'll just say we're not trying to be bargain basement. There will always be someone cheaper, although some of our options are not even offered by other funeral homes. So flame cremation is $2,200. This is for a basic, right, where we are providing the transport, the death certificate, and also the cremains back in a biodegradable container. Flame cremation is $2,200. Water cremation is $3,900, and composting is $7,900. Burial, you are buying your own plot wherever that is, and some cemeteries do not offer the green burial that we are, as a funeral home, most advocating for. I guess some cemeteries require you to buy a vault to go over the grave, which is a large cement, fiberglass, or plastic covering, so the land won't sink and they can mow the lawn. Cemeteries that have green sections do not require you to have a vault. Erie is one, and Lyons is our section that we manage. Those plots are 5,000. I don't know how much Erie is. And then you pay for the burial services on top, which is around 2,500. And Reverent Body Care is about 1,300. Now I'm feeling unsure, but I think it's in that range. And that's, having a ceremony in a chapel with the body, and really something very unique that other funeral homes do not offer. They will offer a viewing, but this is quite different. And hard to even, I think, truly understand unless you've been present for something like that, and then it stays with you, believe me. Yeah. It's a lot to take in, and I understand that. Yeah. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, so with the water cremation, you still have to cremate the bone.
There was actually something that was written recently in an article. It was an interview with me. I won't say who that was. And there was something saying, but then they do, after the water cremation, they cremate the bones in a conventional way or something like that, which is not true. No, the bones remain at the end of the process. We take them out, we dry them, right? So they're being dehydrated, and then we're reducing them to a powder, not with fire, just in the same way that flame cremation operations, or they put the bones into something, which, goodness, I don't want to call it a grinder, but it's called a cremulator, and it just is going to make them very fine. So
The same is true with the compost, in the body compost.
the bones will be put into the composting mix, and they will all be in there with it. So it's kind of like bone meal is now in that mixture. Yes, lady over there.
If you're an organ donor, when do the organs go to be donated, and then how does that dovetail with you?
If you're an organ donor, you are on life support because at the end, because your organs need to be oxygenated in order to be viable. So you're going to be dying in a hospital, right? And then they're going to harvest the organs in order to then put them in into somebody else fairly quickly. And so you were asking, when are the organs taken? They're taken. They're taken, right away.
So in Colorado, you have the right to die. So if you are terminal and you decide to terminate your life, then they could harvest the organs and then you.
Ooh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, in Colorado, there's medical aid in dying, MAID, and that's actually a kind of scheduled end-of-life scenario that we're talking about. And the clients we have dealt with are dying in their homes, right? So they're not on life support. I don't imagine that would happen in a hospital, but I am not going to swear to it, that you would take the final concoction that will end your life, and somehow you'd be kept so you're oxygenated in order for them to take the organs. That would be something I've never experienced in 20 years of death care, but yeah, to do MAID and have organ donation, I don't know if that combination quite matches, but somebody might say, yeah, it can be done.
Thank you very much, Karen. It was a great talk. And folks, that wraps it up for the day. That was the last presentation of the day. Thank thanks to everyone for coming out and joining us today. Hopefully you all got a lot of great information. I know I did, and I know there were a lot of great information at the booths as well. So hopefully everyone took advantage of that. All right, everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's a gorgeous day out there.